What's up, folks? This is Addy Ads, and we got Sam Tripoli on the show today. Really quite an honor to have him on. I was on his show initially, and that's how we touched base was when I was in New York. Well, I'm still in New York right now, but covering the Maxwell trial over kind of winter break and during the holiday time. So that was really a big thing for Sam to reach out to me, and I felt so blessed that he did that, and it was really fun touching base. And we're both reconnecting rather, and now I'm having him on my show. So I want to thank you for joining me today, sir.
Eddie Ads, love it, brother. Appreciate you. Appreciate your work. And just sorry that it took so long to make this happen. But here we are in the
No
mix.
worries.
And I love everything you do. I'm a big fan. And you're fearless, bro. You go right into it. And a lot of people don't do that. So much respect to you, brother.
Thank you, thank you. I appreciate that's high praise coming from you, Sam. And I'm glad we have some time today because I'm really always interested in how people got to do the work that they're doing now, which I would say we have some crossover. You're obviously a comedian and a writer and an entertainer, but I would consider you a journalist too. Even if some people just wanted to describe you as a podcaster, we do have, I think, a lot of subject matter that overlaps. And certainly I was listening to you earlier today on several shows, and there's a lot of stuff you know that I don't know. So I was learning from you, and you have just a ridiculous amount of content out there, whether it's podcasts or comedy shows. But I wanted to ask about where you're from, and then how you got to where you are now. You're originally from New York, right? Is that
Now,
Portland?
upstate. People from New York City consider it Canada, but I'm from the redneck upstate. I call it the South of New York because
Nice.
it's like everything from the South, dude. Incest and crystal meth and bad decisions and economic chaos and everything like that. And I'm blessed to be from there. I'm always from the 607, and I go back there all the time. And I love those people. And I'm also blessed that I got in the West Coast. And though a lot of people hate LA right now, I get it, but I've had a wonderful trip on that. So yeah, upstate New York's where I'm from, man, and it's such a crazy thing that you know I've been able to achieve what little I've been able to achieve because I came here knowing nobody, and I'm very blessed to still be in the mix.
I read it's quite a small town, about 17,000 people or so. I read on Wikipedia. I don't know how accurate that is, but what was that like? Because I've never really heard of that place before. And then when did you move? When were you bi-coastal, so to speak, or when did you switch coasts?
So yeah, man, it's a super small, tiny little town. Sorry about this. Why that Facebook just so super
Yeah,
small,
yeah.
tiny town that seemed like the big world to me. I grew up. I was born in Western New York, and then I moved over when I was 1 years old. My dad got a job in Central New York, and we moved. And my mother still lives in the house I used to live in, and it's a small community. I'm still very close. I'm a text thread with a total of 8 of us from high school. We're all still super close. And but I always had big dreams, dude. I always had big dreams. I was always a square peg in a round hole in high school. I flunked first grade right out the gate. They held me back for emotional reasons, they said. And that kind of like my poor parents must have been looking for like store receipts if they could get store credit for me. But you know, I mean,
Terrible.
right out of the gate, they got to be like, "Oh, give us a moment." And but the one thing I'll tell you about my parents, they always supported me. When I tell you that expectations of me outside of myself and my parents were very low. Not that people were thinking about me. As I get older, I realize nobody's thinking about me, but the general consensus was I was a wild card, and I'll probably end up pumping gas for a living. But I always had big dreams, dude. Very young, you know, very big dreams. I wanted to be class clown in my senior year when I was like in third grade. That was like one of my goals. I got funniest in sixth grade. And as a kid, very early, I would say about when I was about 10 years old, I discovered basketball. And I grew up in like the Syracuse area, so everybody
Mhm.
was, oh, you like Orangemen, but I loved Georgetown and I loved Patrick Ewing, and that's when I started loving like the I wouldn't say it was like I want like the bad boys, right? I was really into like what Patrick Ewing and what Georgetown represents. So my goal in life was to become the first white player to play for John Thompson. And I get cut from my seventh grade, my eighth grade basketball team, my ninth grade basketball team. And that was a big moment for me because that's when I started realizing that the world didn't see me the way I saw myself. And here we are. I'm very blessed, everything going on. I'm not as big as some of my friends, but I'm blessed to be where I am. And I always had a super faith in myself. So from very young, I wanted to be I always tell people I wanted to be a stand-up comic from the moment I realized I existed in the universe. When you realize you're a thing, you're something. Like I wanted to be a comic before I even knew there was a word for stand-up comedian, comic. And here we are. And I've had a real crazy fun journey. I wouldn't trade it for anybody else's journey, but man, it's been a super blessing. And now I get to meet people like you that are like fearless out there, like really like taking truth to power in this kind of crazy time. Like, I've been talking about this a lot lately, but people have been calling me a cult leader, which is makes me laugh so much because I like don't want anyone to like follow me. I want people to like be their own people, take care, control their own life, hear what I have to say, question everything I have to say, but like take control of their lives. But the reason I think my show resonates and why I really like what you do, and I'm such a big fan of you, is you know, we're really lighthouses in a sea of shit, you know like we're real lighthouses. In the age of everybody being phony and selling out, authenticity is such a beacon of light, and that's why people resonate with us.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right, Sam. Yeah, I didn't realize prior to this, COVID stuff, perhaps, how rare that was, what you're speaking of, I think.
I think everything's being exposed for what it is, and the truth is, you're not going to wake up anybody. I mean, there's just people that no matter how much they get lied to, they just enjoy the lying, and they because it's too much work to have to process what's real and what is fake, and you just can't save anybody. There's a saying like, don't worry about the sleep, wake up the sleeping lions. And I say, don't even worry about the sleeping lions, just work on yourself and be the example for others. And you know as my daughters were born, I kind of went through this spiritual journey. I was really lost on drugs, and drugs, sex addiction, partying, and just shoot myself in my foot a lot. And now I'm not perfect. I mean, like if you study Hermeticism, it talks about duality, how how there is both light and dark in everybody, and everybody, you'll never get rid of the dark, no matter how much our pop culture and our psychological industry tries to tell you. You'll never get rid of the dark. You have to own the dark to grow the light. And so I've been on this real spiritual journey, and where I am right now, I'm kind of just like all trying to convince many people to save themselves, that they have all the tools they can to save themselves. And that's really what I'm trying to do in my life right now. But I can't save anybody. I'm kind of, if you don't see it now, I can't really help you. But when you do see it and you want to talk, I'm here for you.
Yeah. Yeah, well said. Wow, that was some deep stuff there, Sam. And how just going back a bit, how old were you when you did you leave right after high school to the West Coast?
I have very little regrets in my life, brother. But one of my only regrets is that I left my mother too early. Like I really regret that. And it broke her heart. But I wanted to get out of Cortland. My dad just bombarded me with like, you gotta get out of here. You gotta get out of here. Because I think my father wanted to move to San Diego. My mother wouldn't let him. And it's like when you're young, you're like, mom is everything. You're like, dad, screw you, bro. Don't be me the mom. And then you get older, you're like, okay, I start understanding dad now. I start understanding like what he's going through. And as much as you love your mom, you can understand how, women can be grinding you. And so you start to appreciate your father. So I feel like my father, he's from He's born in 48, and he was just like a guy who like had to get married early, or else if you weren't married by 23, you were gay. And there was this whole kind of like society like fucking pressure on that. But I think he wanted to be a free spirit, and just society that wasn't what you did back then. So I think he really wanted me to. So he pushed me to Vegas. So I left right at 18. I somewhat regret it, but we are where we, what, you can't go back. So I'm kind of where I am, and it's a blessing where I am. So yeah, man, I left school very early. I moved to Las Vegas, and it was just kind of crazy.
And that was UNLV that you attended?
Yeah, I went to UNLV for a couple reasons. One, I thought I wanted to live in the warm. I hated winter. I still hate winter. I'll never live in the cold.
Yeah,
I
sure.
just can't stand it. And like I never skied. I grew up in upstate New York where the skiing is like world class. Like as soon as it hit winter, I never left my house, and I would come out like a bear and after hibernation. So I've always and I moved to Vegas, and it was just sun. So I went there for a couple reasons. One, I thought it'd be a great place to start stand up comedy, and then two, I thought the basketball coach, because basketball was such a big part. I love basketball. It's my favorite sport. I love it. I can watch like summer league basketball. I listen to NBA radio on Sirius Radio when it's the summer, nobody's playing. Like that's how much I love basketball. So I went out because Jerry Tarkanian was the coach, and I'm half Armenian. I was really close to my Armenian side. So I'm like, dude, I'm gonna go hang out with the Armos. And so I went, and I thought it'd be a great place to start stand up, which it wasn't at the time. It's now a great scene, but back then it was garbage. So I went out there, and it was just chaos, bro.
What do you
Chaos.
mean by that? It was just unorganized or
No, it was just like I don't even remember studying. I just remember just going to school and just women partying, stand up. It was like such a run and gun. I'd say, like, so I have two daughters, and it's like so crazy because now I'm trying to download this new like operating system, but I'm like an old iPad, right? I have old wiring, and I'm trying to download this new kind of operating system, and they're constantly in like, bumping heads with each other. So my view of women used to be really horrible. I only had a mother in my life. I didn't really have any women around me, so I had a really bad view of women. Like when I mean bad, like they were just sexual conquests to me. I learned about women through pornography, which is like the worst thing in the world. And so I had a weird view. I had a girlfriend for two girlfriends, Shannon Main, and I don't even remember the other girl's name, for about a total of a weekend in high school. So that's it, all of high school. I never really had a good understanding of it. I had some sexual abuse happen to me when I was really young. The kind of, and then, I'm Armenian, Sicilian, Italian. So I was like super sexually charged. And I just had a bad view of like how to interact with women. I saw them as notches on your belt, which is now I'm like, oh my God, what a horrible way to look at women, right? But that's who I was. And it was just chaos when I moved to UNLV. It was the best of time, but it was super unhealthy. And so I was doing that stand-up comedy. I mean, it was just I wouldn't change it for everyone, but it was a real outlaw time for me. And it really centered me. It really kind of like crystallized my point of view in terms of stand-up comedy, like what was happening in Vegas. It was very outlaw. Like it was started by Doug Stanhope, was like the godfather of the comedy scene. And when I moved out there, there was one open mic every other week in all of Las Vegas. So I'm like, I gotta get up all the time. So I just started stand-up comedy shows almost every night. I would run to a different show. I was either doing a show or I was starting my own show, and the rest is kind of history. And it was a blessing. It was such a crazy fun time. I moved out to LA after
and
about
that
five.
was after you graduated or
No, I really just went to college because my mother and father wanted me to. I really shouldn't
Hmm,
have gone. I got a degree in psychology because I love the movie Basic Instinct and Silence of the
oh,
Lamb, and I thought
oh, nice.
psychology was good. And that I got C plus. I'm functionally illiterate. I have to use Google to spell. I'm writing a book right now, or someone else is writing a book for me right now, and so it's like I can't write shit. But I just kind of that's why it's like when you call me a journalist, I'm like I love it. I couldn't write a word like when Google cleans up my fucking typing in email so badly. It's so funny, but so yeah, dude, it was a I was I went to college and I was doing stand up and I was working all the time. So I have a real like immigrant mentality when it comes to work. I have this philosophy, get comfortable with the uncomfortable. I got that from my father and my mother. So I've always worked a lot. So when people are like, dude, you put out like 19 podcasts, I'm like, it's either that or talk to myself all day, which I literally would be talking to myself all day. So I just put a camera and a microphone in front of me and make content.
Word. That's excellent. And what, since you brought it up, just out of curiosity, what jobs have you had in the past?
Oh, dude,
Yeah,
I had
before.
everything. I had everything. I got a job as a waiter. Then I waited tables for most of my time in LA. I mean, in Vegas. And then when I graduated college, I'm like, I'm gonna give myself a gift. And I went and worked at the Spearmint. I went and worked at Deja Vu Showgirls as a as an everything. They trained me in everything. And it was the most broke I've ever been in my life, but I had the best time. And it was just, I learned a lot about people and how they interact. And, say whatever you want about the strip bar industry. It, to me, there's not a lot of backstabbing because everyone's there just to make money. Nobody's like trying to work up the corporate ladder. So I learned a lot about people and I met a lot of nice people that were just trying to do the best that they could. I have a dark passenger, So my mother married a guy she met in Pine Avenue who was like a slicker, if you remember like the outsiders, he's a slicker, she was a cop's daughter. He was just come from a poor Italian family. And she married a knuckle dragging scumbag, and she had two little scumbag kids. And me and my brother have a certain way of looking at the world, and we really like to enjoy like the strippers and the adult film stars, like that part of my life and comedy. And I'm like I don't do that anymore. I'm kind of like a different point of my life. I have no problems with those people. As long as you're not hurting anybody, in particular children, I don't really care what you do. Some of them are still my friends. They're nice people. And, porn stars and comics are very similar to each other. They have the same kind of business model. So I really, and everyone's like, oh, porn. There's a lot of mental illness happening on, in there. But that's the same thing with comics. Like very few comedians are not crazy people, at least the funny ones. I can count my hands like 3, 4 normal people that I'm like, oh, those are normal human beings that are extremely funny, and that is Maz Jobrani, Dwayne Perkins, Steve, my buddy Steve, and then my buddy, Steve Simone, excuse me, and then Fortune Finster are the only 4 normal human beings I've ever met that were killers on stage. The rest of us are all broken toys. And again, like if you use the Hermetic principles, you use your darkness to empower your light, so that you use what makes you broken. You kind of use that to make you funny. I'm sorry I'm talking so much.
No, no, this is great. This is great, Sam. I love that. It's fascinating listening to you. And about how long after you arrived, how long were you in Vegas before you made the move to California? Because I read you got your break at the Comedy Store when you
Yeah,
were
yeah,
a doorman, right?
yeah, yeah. I was very blessed, man. I don't know what it was. Oh, it's a very famous story about me being picking up. So I was doing comedy for about 5 years in Vegas, and at the time, the Vegas comedy scene, the local comedy scene, the comedy clubs. There were 3 of them. There were Catch a Rising Star, Comedy Stop, and there's a club in the MG. Oh, the Riviera Comedy Club, ran by Steve Sharippa, who went on to become famous through The Sopranos. And he gave me my first main comedy club date. But I was so wild, bro. I was such a wild comic. and I wasn't ready for club comedy. I wasn't ready for anything because I really hadn't been playing comedy clubs. I was just playing wild bars and just going up there and being an insane human being on stage, just a bull in a china shop. And I remember I got a weekend doing the Dirty Show at the Riviera, and Steve Sharippa, like he's like, dude, you're walking people, and I like he saw I was so defeated. He's like, okay, come on, I'm not gonna fire you. What do you let's work on this act, do this, and I did. I made the week. He's like, I want you to come and open up the Dirty Show I do, and it was with Nick DiPaolo. I just started doing comedy. It was Nick DiPaolo, and I have this theory about comedians who are really dark, angry, and dirty on stage. When they're really dark and dirty on stage, they're the nicest people off stage. They're just the nicest people. Like Doug Stamp. I just went and saw Doug Stamp last night. What he does on stage is so funny and so dark. And you're like, you meet him after. He couldn't be nicer. He's the nicest dude ever. Every time I see him, I can't believe we're friends. This is how I love him. And just like he's so nice. I'm always shocked. And that's Nick DiPaolo. So I kind of peaked in in Vegas. I'd had my own show on the Strip. I had my own improv troupe called The Mutiny in a bunch of different casinos. And I kind of peaked. I was like, okay, I got my own show. I peaked. I'm leaving. So I go to Vegas. And so I move pretty quickly in Vegas. I get picked up by the improv, and I get picked up by the Laugh Factory really quick. And I'm a regular there. And what that means is when you're a regular, you can call in and get spots during the week. And that's how you get better, but you're going up against like the best of the best. Like at that time, like there were just murderers in LA, just murderers, like murderers row. And every day, man, some new comic would move to town and they would just be gunslingers. And you're like, fuck, another one, man, another killer, man. And it just like, it was such a great time because when I moved to LA, something magical had happened. There was a show called Dublin's, and it was such a big show because it was the first time that comedians from all the 3 comedy clubs were allowed to perform in the same place. There was a kind of a rule back then that if you played the Comedy Store, you couldn't play the Laugh Factory or the Improv, and if you played the Improv, you weren't allowed to play the Comedy Store or the Laugh Factory. It was like very territorial. But this show, for the first time, everybody was performing together. So it was going really well. So I'm doing good. I get picked up at the Comedy Store, and there's a whole story that I could tell you about it. I'll tell you real quick.
Sure.
Yeah,
please.
It's featured in the Comedy Store doc that just came out on Showtime. I was so blessed. It's like 6 episodes. I was
That's
in
awesome. That's awesome.
5 of them. And if it wasn't for a guy named Mike Binder, who was like the host of it, I would never gotten into it. I just have always had this weird relationship with the industry. I'm just a wild card. So the booker at the time, which I probably deserved because, I was canceling gigs because I was doing too many drugs at the time. And so he probably canceled me. He stopped giving me as many spots because I cancel a lot. So that's on me. And I'm not always the guy that everybody gets. Because some people think there's rules to comedy, and I don't believe there's any rules. I will defend people's right to do jokes I don't even like. I think the subject matter is fucking gross, but I'll defend them right to do it, right? So I've always had this weird kind of relationship with the industry. But so I get a call. One of my good friends is Maz Jobrani. I call him Pelvis. He's the Persian Elvis. And we just kicked it off. Me and Maz Jobrani kicked it off. And again, he's one of the only normal people I know that fucking, is super funny. And I always knew he was going to be a star, and he's a big star. And I knew from day one I met him. I used to run this tiny pack of guys. It was like, like Maz Jobrani, Brett Ernst, John Caparulo, Sebastian Maniscalco. We used to co-headline together. He just sold out the Forum, So it's like I knew these guys when they were just coming up, and Sebastian's always been great to me. He's always been a great comic. I love him very much, and he's doing his thing. And so one day So I used to showcase for Mitzi all the time, and one time I got like basically a standing O. Lauren Peltz, who was a waitress there, followed me out. She's like, "Oh my God, you're so good. You're so funny." And Mitzi's like, "He's disgusting. He's gross. He's fucking offensive." I was like, "Oh fuck." Well, the booker at the time is Princess Corey, and she goes, "We're making you a new thing. You're a new category. You're a showcase regular, which means you get to get in front of Mitzi anytime you want to showcase." I'm like, "Oh, I don't even know what that means, but thank you." So Princess Corey quits. Duncan Trussell takes over, and I get a call from Oz. He's like, "I think I can get you in to the Comedy Store. They're doing a Middle Eastern show. She wants Middle Eastern comics." He's like, "You're Armenian, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's not Middle Eastern." He goes, "Nobody cares. Just we're gonna get you in." So I called Dunk. He's like, "Yeah, I can get you in, dude. I can get you in. Here's what you're gonna do, dude. You're gonna do one joke about one of your parents, one joke about your ethnic group, and then do your favorite joke." So I did a joke. I did a joke about my mother power walking, how angry she is when she power walks, and then I did a joke about being Armenian and being furry and having to go down to the beach and take your shirt off, and people are calling like the SPCA on you and animal control and all this stuff. And then I ended up on a joke that Joey Diaz loved, and it was about Asians on ecstasy and about how because at the time we used to call them raves, and we would go to raves and it was just all Asians on ecstasy rolling with fucking baby pacifiers and glow sticks. And I used to because I'm like, I get why they're tripping because they're so smart. Their visuals are so much better than ours. Like their visuals are like IMAX, Dolby Digital sound. Mine is like Atari 8-bit, right? Like so, and I got off stage, and one time, Joey Diaz, who was hosting, he's like, "Dog, that's the best bit, dog. Dog, that's so fucking funny." I go, "Okay, I'm gonna do that bit." So I did the bit. So I tell the story about when I was showcased. When you would showcase, Mitzi, people would do hijack your showcase, and because they want to get in front of Mitzi, so they would get spots. So they would sit next to you, Mitzi, as you were performing, and they would steal her focus. Well, like 2 weeks before, I've been performing at the Hustler Club, ran by a guy named Johnny Montana, and I think he was doing some blow or he's on Adderall. I don't even know, but I was doing a joke about how how hard it was to be a white guy in America at the time. And I got off stage, and legendary comic Paul Mooney came up to me. He's like, "Oh, homie, you ain't white. Use Armenian. Use that." And he drops an N bomb on me. Use an N word, and which I couldn't stop laughing at because I literally got called the N word by the guy who was like fucking clone, basically copyrighted the N word. Like he was Richard Pryor's writer, so he would tell everybody he was from the planet Nigatron, and he was so funny. So it was like a badge of honor. And I used to have a joke that it was my number one credit on my Wikipedia page was to be called the N word by Paul Mooney. And so I'm doing stand up, and I look out, and Paul Mooney is sitting right next to Mitzi. And I'm like, "Oh, this motherfucker is hijacking my fucking showcase." I'm like, "God damn it." Well, what turned out was that Paul Mooney really liked me, and he was telling her that she should pick me up and make me a regular. And to this day, I'll always be, so thankful to Paul Mooney. So I walked up to Mitzi, and what would happen after you showcase? You kiss the ring, you know, and you walk up. You're like, "Thank you, Mitzi. I'm so thankful that you picked me up." She's like, "Oh, you were so funny. Great job." She goes, "Are you Syrian?" And like this is a true story. I didn't know what Syrian was at the time. I'd never heard of Syria, and I graduated college. But at that moment, I was full-blooded Syrian. I was like, "Yeah, I'm totally Syrian. I love being Syrian. I love my Syrian grandma. I love Syrian food." She's like, "Great. I want you to come and showcase one more time." So long story short, I showcase for her again. She picks me up. She gives me my first spot ever. Was in the main room at the Comedy Store, and there was only two people that ever get a main room spot as their first spot, and that is myself and Roseanne Barr. So that's how I became a regular at the Comedy Store.
Wow. Wow, that's amazing story there, Sam. I may have missed that. Mitzi is basically the show curator, correct? She decides
Mitzi
who's gonna be.
Mitzi is the world famous owner of the world famous Comedy Store. She's no longer with us, but she is like historic. I don't know
Sure.
who to, even though I don't put him in say, she's kind of like the Hugh Hefner of comedy. Not, she was kind of the like she was the face of like comedy. She made so many stores. You should watch the Comedy Store doc. It's on I think it's
Yeah.
on Showtime right now. It's so well done.
Yeah.
And
I might check it out tonight even.
Mike Binder basically had to get 50 pounds of shit into a 10-pound bag, and he did a great job on it. So not everyone got in there. Some feelings were hurt, but he did the best job he could under the circumstances. He got as much of the greatness into it. And yeah, man, it was a real blessing that Mitzi loved me. And she really helped create. And like from there, me and the industry kind of never got along. So I
What
kind
do you
of
mean?
by my own way. They just hated me. Like the industry hated me. They would openly tell people that knew me how much they hated me, how much they didn't think I was funny, how much they would never work with me. They would never book me on their shows. I would like the last time I did, even though Comedy Central is irrelevant now, the last time I did stand up on Comedy Central was the first time I did stand up, and I got a standing O, and they never had me back ever, not once. And so is what it is, and so there's nothing really you could do about that. So at a very early age, I realized I had I had to do everything on my own. I have a very famous story about the industry. I'll tell it real quick.
Yeah,
So
please.
there used to be a big festival called the Montreal Comedy Festival, and it used to be a Kingmaker Festival where the industry would go to find the newest talent. What people didn't know is everybody went there to just have sex with like Canadian tens, right? Like you could get like a 10 hooker, like a hooker that was a like LA 10 for like $100. So like the industry would just go up there and just bang fucking hot Canadian chicks. And that's why the festival was so big, and it was a big party. Everybody would party. So I get asked to go to the Montreal Comedy Festival like a year into stand up. And I didn't know what it was when I got asked, but I'm like, oh, everybody wants to go to Montreal. They want me to go to Montreal, go to fucking Montreal. So I go there, and during my audition, I tap into something that I now master. I own it. But then I just tapped into it, and I didn't know how to harness it. And I crushed my showcase. So they make me the fucking headliner of this young comedians show when I'd never even done like comedy clubs at that point. Just gotten picked up at the world famous comedy store. I didn't know comedy. And they had me follow this guy named Corey Holcomb, who was great. He's a great comic. Now I could follow him, not even think twice about it. But I bombed real hard. And I bombed. Like, and I basically put a fucking nail in the coffin of my career at that point, at very young. I was only about 26, 27, but my relationship with the industry is pretty much done at that point. Even though I'd have a couple things happen, it was just done. And so I remember this woman. Her name was Ann Manny, and she's a wonderful person. At the time, she was head of Fox Comedy Development, and I know she'd saw me bomb. So I remember that I just like my whole goal at that point, like I had this Kill Bill list that I wanted to get in front of people to show them that that wasn't who I was. Like all I wanted to do was get in front of this woman, Ann Manny. So for 2 years, I'm just working on my act. I'm gonna get in front of Ann Manny. I'm gonna get in front of Ann Manny. I'm gonna get in front of Ann Manny. I'm working. So one day, Madra Bryan calls me like, "Hey man, I'm doing a showcase for Ann Manny. Would you like to do it?" And I'm like, "Oh, like, dude, This has been what we've been waiting for. This is it. I'm like, hell yeah, I do it. So the showcase comes, and all I've been thinking about is Aunt Manny for 2 years. All I've been thinking about. So I finally get up there. The other guy from Tenacious D is there. Kyle, he's the nicest guy. I fucking crush. Crush. My dreams are being realized. So I get off stage. I'm kind of like Neo in the Matrix. Zing, zing, I'm the one. It's all working out. And Manny comes up to me, and like this dream of 2 years is finally coming to fruition. She comes up to me. She goes, "Great set." I go, "Oh my God, it's happening." She goes, "Great set." She goes, "Can I ask you something?" I go, "Yeah." She goes, "Have you ever done the Montreal Comedy Festival?" I go, "What?" She goes, "Have you ever been to the Montreal Comedy Festival?" I go, "Yeah, I've done the Montreal Comedy Festival." She didn't even remember me. And all I wanted to do was get in front of her and show her how great it was. It just shows you how we just focus on stupid shit. And
Wow.
yeah,
That's amazing. That's amazing. That's amazing story.
yeah.
Wow.
That's just like resentments, dude, will kill you, bro. That's the whole point. That whole thing. Resentments will kill you, dude. Don't fucking focus on anything because truthfully, nobody's thinking about you. That's what I believe.
Sure, sure. And it's amazing for several reasons. First, because that was a 2-year goal. So, that's a goal where you have to push gratification for a very long period of time, right? That's 2 years of your life. And you completely visualize that scenario happening. It comes to fruition. And your motivation for that whole thing, you realize, was not what you thought it was. That's an amazing story.
Thank you, dude. Thank you. Thank
Yeah, yeah. I wanted to ask too, Sam, about what position you played when you played basketball.
Oh, dude, great question. I mean, back in my day, I was like the Patrick Beverly of my league, dude. 3D shooting, talking shit, old biggies basketball, no layup rules. I fucking loved it, dude. I love basketball. 3D. If I could be any player, I would be Sean Kemp with a 3-point shot. I used to love watching the Rain Man play, but if I could shoot threes, that would be me. And I wanted to play D1 basketball, and I just have no skill. But I loved it. I used to be able to shoot really well.
Mhm.
But I just never happened. But I'm so thankful for those early failures because like they really taught me like don't listen to anybody else. Don't listen to them. Believe in yourself and just stay in the pocket. And this too shall pass. And like, dude, usually the people that are running, giving you shit or not liking you, they'll be gone, and new people show up, or you just blaze your own trail, which is kind of the beauty of the internet right now.
Yes, sir. Yes, and you were one of those trailblazers, I would say, Sam Tripoli. I wanted
Thank
to
you.
ask why you think they. I mean, it doesn't sound like you were. Maybe you were blackballed. I don't know, but like, why do you think you got that sort of um negative, feelings or negative outlooks from people?
I mean, like at the end of the day, I'm probably super paranoid. I mean, I would hear stories about, oh, this booker's like he'll never work. Literally, I had a booker tell my manager he didn't know he was my manager, and he's like, I will never book Sam Tripoli ever. I'm like, I don't even know who this dude is. Like, what does he look like? I can't even pick this guy who hates me of a police lineup. Now he's fucking hating me. And it's just like so I had a show called The Naughty Show, and it was like a sketch comedy show with adult film stars. And there's some really great, I mean, like I know it sounds crazy, but there were some great actresses and they were so funny and they loved doing stuff that didn't involve them, having sex on camera. Um, so it was really funny. So I got a development deal at Comedy Central and I did it. And Comedy Central said, we love the show, we just hate Sam. And that was my manager's direct quote. And so it is what it is, dude. And I
Mm.
just learned I had to do everything on my own. And everything I learned, uh, every failure was a lesson for later on, and that is something I did. I was living that, but I now believe it and understand it that things don't happen to me, they happen for me. So everything was a learning lesson. And what I learned from that was if you just practice abundance in your life and show people love, uh, the universe gives it back to you. And it's,
Hmm.
we're raised in scarcity. We're always told everything's about scarcity. The fear of running out of money, fear of dying alone, fear of all this stuff. If you just show love to others and help others, you'll never have to worry about that. And
Hmm.
that's my honest. The universe takes care of people who take care of others. And even when it looks like you're about, I used to think that the it used to be that I used to think about LA was so interesting because when you were just down and out and ready to quit, something would always happen to keep you in the game. And sometimes like, it's both good and bad. But then I realized it's good because the universe is rewarding you for treating people with love. And those who treat people with love, like the universe takes care of you. And sometimes you have to hear the universe and realize what you're doing isn't the path you're down isn't meant to be the path you're meant to be on. Sometimes you have to be understand that you have to change it up and mix it up and
Hmm.
go down a different path. You're meant to do something else. You get kind of got to be open minded to that.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you talking about kind of crossroads moments in people's lives, or just signals that you pick up along the way, or both, maybe?
Well, it's like if you go, hey man, I want to be the next Vince Vaughn, right? It's very rare to be the next Vince Vaughn. There's only like how many Vince Vaughns in the history of Hollywood have there been? 50 over uh, like 70 years. I mean, like it's so unique. So if you sit there like this is the only thing that's gonna make me happy, I think you're setting yourself up for a lot of depression and sadness. But if you open up, there's different venues for you to get your artistic itches in. Okay. Maybe you're not meant to be a mainstream actor. Maybe you're meant to be an independent film producer, right? Or maybe you're meant to fucking become a great gardener and you fucking grow amazing garden and people love your gardening. And, it's like you got to be open minded to what the universe wants you to do. And our modern society is just all we want to do is shove square pegs in the round holes. And when it doesn't fit, we numb
Hmm.
ourselves up on pharmaceutical drugs and just continue to shove the square peg in the round hole instead of being open minded to what the universe is trying to tell you that your path is you're meant to be on a different path and be open minded to what that path could be.
Yeah. Yeah. I I wanted to ask, you mentioned how competitive it was uh, during that time period, in California, and what years were that? And then I wanted to ask you, why do you think you were able to rise up, or get those breakouts like you did?
Um so what were the years? The years were basically your when I moved to LA, it was about 1999, 2000. I don't know the exact year, but it was around then. I was 25 years old because I remember it's like, okay, I gotta get out by 25. So it's 25. I moved to LA. Uh, it was a very funny story. My buddy Scott, who now runs his own 10th Planet Jiu Jitsu school in Ventura, he's Ventura 10th Planet. He had moved out with me. He'd moved out to LA before he had to get out of Vegas, so we're gonna live together. So we had to find a weekly when we lived out there, and it was so funny because the weekly is just one step above homeless, and it was so hard to find a place at that time because Scott didn't have any money. He was working at Starbucks, and we were literally living off of him, like giving away free drinks and keeping the money. That's how we lived for a little while because we wanted to save my money for for an apartment where I was going to put
Hmm.
down the down payment on the apartment. So we lived in a weekly, and this weekly was just like one step above homeless, and people were trying to do the best they could. I It was so hot at night. It was so hot at night. I would um I would have to walk. I had to get out. I couldn't sleep because there was no air conditioning. So I'd walk at night, walk the streets of Hollywood, just checking it out. Well, one day I'm just sitting at home. Scott's working at Starbucks. I get knocking doors, the manager, and he's with these two huge black guys. He's like, you gotta go. I'm like, what? What do you mean I gotta go? He's like, you're moving out now. I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm like helping him pick up my, like, throw me out. I go, can I ask you why you're kicking me out? I mean, I'm going. Can I know? He's like, we don't have to tell you. I go, okay. And the two guys are like, dude, he's a really nice guy. You should probably tell him why he's getting kicked out. He goes, fine. You're a gay hooker. I go, what? He goes, you're a gay hooker. You're selling your ass on Hollywood Boulevard. I go, well, first of all, thank you for thinking anyone would even want to pay for my ass. And two, it's just too hot in here. I can't sleep at night, so I got to get outside because you have no air conditioning. Anyways, I get thrown out. And I get thrown in my car. I'm driving. I'm crying. I run to Scott at the Starbucks, and I go, Scott. He goes, what's going on? I go, they've kicked us out. I go, why? He goes, why? I go, because they think I'm a gay hooker. Now, he has narcolepsy, and what triggers his narcolepsy is that he laughs too hard. So he instantly starts falling asleep right there.
Oh my, you're joking.
No, that's true story. And I look over, and Christian Slater just drinking his coffee, listening to us. I'm like, mind your business, Christian Slater. So that's how I moved to LA. It was just a golden era of comedy. I was at the so every 20 years the Comedy Store it does what I call a death and a rebirth.
Sure.
And it's kind of going through this rebirth right now.
Sure.
Redefining itself, figuring itself out. I love the Comedy Store. I bleed black and red. I bleed it. It's like the Comedy Store, get the fuck out from me, And Mitzi had cleaned out she cleaned out the middle of the lineup. And she just had cleaned it out, dude. She gutted it. And like when I was young, I was really thankful for the spots. But as the guy who's older, I could feel the heartbreak of being told you can't go up anymore. So it felt very bad. But she would give me like 5 spots a week when I first started at the Comedy Store. And, so I was very blessed to get up a lot very early at the Comedy Store. And, what they call that period of the Comedy Store, they call it the dark period. And this is the only thing I wish that Binder had talked a little bit more about was the dark period at the Comedy Store. People call it the dark period, but the people who were there all the time, would tell you that it was their favorite time there because it was the most pure comedy ever.
I was going to ask you about that, Sam. Why do you think that was, and why was it called the dark period? Is because it was dark humor? Is that the connection?
It was dead. The world famous Comedy Store was dead. There was you'd have 30 people in the crowd. I once watched Paul Mooney, one of the greatest comics ever, do stand-up comedy for 2 people. So it was dead. I'd walk in, Steve Rand, he was working the door. He's like, should I get a new job? I'm like, and at the time, there were 2 comedy stores. There was the Hollywood and the La Jolla, and the La Jolla Comedy Store was keeping the Hollywood Comedy Store open.
Wow.
And Mitzi was still in control, but she wasn't in control of her own life. And she's starting to, she was getting older. She'd been partying, and she wasn't in control like she used to be. But she was in control of the store. So at the time, the inmates were running the asylum. And so, but it was like you could go up there and bomb and still get spots. And that's the beauty of it. And I don't know if it'll ever get back to there because of its brand. But the ability to go up there and bomb, and all these comics you see now, they're getting Netflix specials and major headliners. They all came out of the Comedy Store at that dark period. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. It was a blessing. And then Coke came in and everybody was doing blow and just screwing. Everybody was doing blow and screwing. It was such a blessing to be there at that time. It's never going to go back to that. Hollywood has completely and utterly fucked itself. They've gotten rid of all the outlaw shit. The fucking mediocre have taken over. They've used political correctness to kneecap the competition, and it's going to be a while. I mean, like the internet is going to be the only thing that saves Hollywood. When the final death blow to network television's gone and nobody cares, like TV is going to become FM radio, where it's there, nobody really listens to it. And once that's complete, we'll get away from all these fucking bozos, these people who can't do it, and we'll get back to genuine content creating. Like the notion of you can't talk about anything. Yeah, you can. You just gotta stay in the pocket. But the Hollywood is dead. You drive down Sunset, it's dead. They got rid of all the outlaws. These mediocre rich kids want to be famous because daddy didn't hug them enough. And guess what? Go fuck yourself. You're just gonna kill them. And then what's gonna happen is it will come back and it will be a rebirth when all the rot of fucking these cultural Marxist rich kids are gone. And that's what's going to happen.
Yeah. And do you think that's going to be a societal shift, not just in Hollywood? Because I see a bit of a mirroring with just how comedy is, outside of people who are comedy heads, or I don't know what the term is. Certainly, I would not describe myself as, and I want to. I haven't been to too many comedy shows, and like all these names, I recognize a few of them, but a lot of this is new to me. So, yeah, what are your what's your take on that?
What specifically?
I'm sorry. I think I lost my my train of thought there. What is it that you just mentioned? What was the last thing you mentioned?
That art that comedy's too politically correct. But
Okay, yeah. So
is a infrastructure being built by people like Joe Rogan, the Death Squad comics, the Legion of Skanks guys, myself, Ari Shaffir, Shane Gillis. There is now a system that is set that allows people who want to do real comedy, they can now flourish and make money. That when I was in Vegas, I would have all these old comics going, "Oh, good luck trying to make $1 with dirty comedy." Well, now I'm fucking killing it, and I have no fucking boss, and I'm just doing my own thing. So, like, listen, dude, these twats, these like cultural Marxist twats, have no balls. And when they come at you, if you go at them harder, they all run like twats because they're all soft people. How many people do you think on Bill Maher's TV show have ever been punched in the face? Answer is zero. Zero. There's a reason why they call words violence, and violence is never the answer. Because the narrative is being pushed by rich kids who've never fucking been punched in the face. And the only thing that can hurt them are feelings. These fucking fucks, okay? Screw you, suck a dick, and don't give a fuck. Come at me. I'm a fucking knuckle dragging, sex addicted, shit talking, drug addict. Go fuck yourself, okay?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a sentiment I can definitely get behind, and I think one that's probably maybe that's the biggest problem with society right now is the people who have the loudest voices haven't been punched in the face.
Yeah, well, it's not real.
You could be onto something there.
It's not real. It's astroturfed. It's not grassroots movement. It's dude, the fucking fringe left progressives. Like, I know people who are super liberal that are like, fuck those guys. That super progressive social justice warrior left is American ISIS, American Al Qaeda. Okay? They are well-funded extremists that are simply here to destabilize and demoralize. Okay? That's their whole job.
Mm-hmm.
You can't send Al Qaeda into the United States. There'll be a bunch of fucking blood fucking rag turbans on curbs where their fucking heads got fucking curb stomped, okay? BLM, Antifa, all those riots are allowed to happen until fucking people show up with guns. Whether it's fucking Kenosha in Wisconsin or the fucking what was his name that got beat up by the cops?
Floyd? George Floyd,
No.
or
Back in the day in Compton, the Compton riots.
oh yeah, Rodney King.
Rodney King riots. Do you know why those
Yeah.
stopped? Because Koreans got on their fucking top of their buildings with guns and started pegging motherfuckers. So when the guns show up, everybody sits the fuck down. It's just the truth. It's just the truth. When the guns show up, fucking everybody gets real fucking quiet. So you're allowed to play patty cakes until the adults show up. All right. So you can't send a fucking Al Qaeda in. They'll all leave in body bags. So how do you do it? You have to do it through the inside, through fucking moral rot. Now, I don't care if you're gay. I don't care if you're trans. I don't give a fuck if you're right. I don't give a fuck if you're left. You do whatever you want with consenting adults as long as you don't hurt kids. If you hurt kids, you need to fucking go. Outside that, I don't care. Also, keep it to yourself. What you do in your house, keep it to your fucking self. We don't need drag queens reading to kindergartners, okay? That's an adult event, okay? It happens in nightclubs. What's next? We're going to have strippers fucking teaching kids how to teaching kids how to fucking count by shooting ping pong balls out of their snatches. Okay. It's not, leave your adult shit at home. Leave it at home. Nobody wants it. Okay. You want to fucking be a drag queen? Do it with adults. Leave the kids alone. But they know they have to get to the kids early. So you have these useful idiots that are talking about people who are questioning the Ukrainian narrative as useful idiots. No, the useful idiots are the ones who do the dirty work, okay, of the authority. That's what useful idiots are. And these social Marxists, these cultural Marxist people, they need to study socialism and communism and see what. So there was this fucking fat piece of garbage on The View the other day. This fat black gay guy, and this coming from a
Okay.
fat fucking weirdo Armenian. Okay, fat weirdo Armenian. All right. I had to lose a lot of weight just to see my dick again, okay? That's how fat I am. All right? This fat fucking black gay dude talking about how we got to get rid of the Constitution. I want you to find that guy in Russia. Where's that version in Russia? Where's that version in China? Where's that version in Iran? Where's that version in Latin America? They don't exist, man. They don't fucking exist. They don't allow. Once Marxism comes in, communism is right behind it, and then they get rid of the ethnic minorities, gays, and they make women second-class citizens. It happens all the time. So these people don't even know what they're asking for. Most of them don't have children, so they don't care what happens after they take their last breath. Okay, if you don't have kids, get the fuck out of the conversation. I'm just yelling at you.
That's all right, Sam. That was fantastic, rant. I loved it. No, it's necessary because we need people to be expressing these thoughts because I think otherwise there's a societal psychological repression, I believe, that manifests really in unhealthy ways, often violence. And you bring up a great point that it's ironic that the only country they can be given that sort of voice, they're using that platform to disparage the document basically that allows it. And I know the Constitution is to a large degree de facto defunct in many ways, but we still do have that freedom of speech right, at least in theory. Obviously, but I think both of us have experienced quite a bit of technocratic censorship. I don't know if you've, yeah, I don't know what your experience of that has been, if it's been too bad or.
Yeah, dude. I mean, like I'm on my third Twitter. I had to pay a ton of cash to get my Instagram back. One episode I did on the Pissar family. Every one of the tech giants fuck with me, dude. It was like a fucking shot above the bow. Apple, Facebook, Google, and Twitter all censored me in one way or the other, just to let a motherfucker know, So they came after me. Yeah, I've had it all. So, because I'm a crazy person, I talk to myself all the time. And so I have like 90 podcasts. So I pulled Tinfoil Hat off of YouTube. It's gone off YouTube. It doesn't exist there anymore. And the reason I did that is because They just kept censoring. I had 136 subscribers, and I didn't want to lose it. So I pulled off
Mm.
everything that didn't go by what YouTube wanted. And now they're starting to recommend me more. I'm starting to get more subscribers, and I'm still shadow banned to a point, but I took tinfoil hat and all my conspiracy stuff. I put it on Rockfin. I put it on Odyssey. I put it on, Rumble, where they want that content. Yeah, there's not as much traffic there yet, but there will be. And that's the
Yeah.
beauty of it.
Yeah.
You can't control the truth. It all eventually comes out. And dude, I'm telling you, brother, this whole thing with this World Economic Forum, these motherfuckers talking about turning off the fucking internet. You want to turn off the
Mm.
internet? You really want to turn off the fucking internet? Fucking go for it, dog. I fucking beg you to turn the internet off so we can find out how our lives are without the internet, without your fucking propaganda, without your fucking occult magic, dude. Turn it off and have us realize how much we don't fucking need you. But you can't do it. You can't, because you need our data and you need to propagandize us and false flag us into fucking manifesting what you want to do. So turn it off, Klaus Schwab. I beg you to turn it off. And this is the guy who makes all of his money off the internet. Turn it off. Go for it, fuckface. Give us 3 weeks without the internet and watch how many people don't go back. Do it. Do it. Do it. You won't fucking do it because you need our data and you fucking need to propagandize us. Imagine if we don't get blue check marks trying to lie to us all the time. What kind of world we're going to live in? We'll be like Russia, where they're trying to take away Pornhub and McDonald's and soda. Like, are you hurting them or fucking helping them? What are you doing?
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think is about the Ukraine Russia thing? Yeah. I don't know if you've been following that at all, or
Azerians versus Tatarians, bro. This is all about fucking sorcery, dude. That's what it's all about. Sorcery. They're a bunch of fucking sorcerers. Okay, Biden is a broke down sorcerer. He's got
broken
do
down.
that State of the Union shit the bed, literally and figuratively. Okay, and he was meant to deliver that to get us to manifest for us to beg him to go into the Ukraine. It's not happening. Maybe it will, but I think at this moment they fucking screwed the pooch and they just can't do it. And people are waking up all the time. Some fucking stupid poll came out that a third of Americans, that's how they focus it too. A third of Americans want to go in and do a no-fly zone in Ukraine. Yeah, that means 2/3 don't. And I want to know who the 1/3 how did you poll them? Where did you poll them? Because nobody has landlines, motherfucker. Like, who you calling? Who you calling?
Right. Yeah. That's a good point. Where do they get these people they're polling? How do they word the question? Like you mentioned, they're not asking, "Do you want to go to war?" Which is essentially what they're asking. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they're protecting biolabs. They're protecting the DNC servers. Okay. They broke an agreement they had with Russia to keep NATO off the borders. That's what they're fucking doing. Putin's not a good guy, but he's right. Okay. A broken clock is right twice a day. He's right in this instance. You lied to us about weapons of mass. You lied to us about Pearl Harbor. You lied to us about Vietnam. You lied to us about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. You lied to us about 9/11. You lied to us about every fucking war. So why would this be any different? The difference is that we have an internet that is a permanent record, and we know you're fucking lying, so nobody's falling for it.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think people are. And it's been really overwhelming, the barrage of war propaganda. It's been like on the side of the highway on the New Jersey Turnpike. I saw like a stand with Ukraine thing. It blew my mind. I was
All
speechless
that
for a
shit's
few seconds.
fake, bro. All of it's fake. It's all
Yeah.
astroturfing. It's all astroturfing. It's just fucking, it's all Fed funny money by BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street to fucking astroturf cultural Marxism, okay? Most of these motherfuckers you put a name on the Ukraine on a globe, they couldn't find it to save their life. Okay. They're all evil idiots, and it's just not working. Okay. And let me tell you something. If I see you fucking calling for war in Ukraine, you better be on a flight to go fight that war. I'm tired of these rich kids wanting to send poor kids to die for their fucking parents. Go fuck yourself. The
Yes. Yes.
Unabomber and Malcolm X were right. Rich white liberals are the most dangerous animal in the world.
Yeah. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just gonna put it that way. But yeah, no, I've heard other people bring up the Unabomber, Ted Kaczynski's. Um, it was like the future of industry and society. I think
Yeah,
it was
yeah. His
called.
whole manifesto. He talks
Yeah.
about rich white kids, and he's so right. They don't respect these these disenfranchised groups. They feel bad for them. Like they like look down on them. And that's why they gotta feel, oh my God, we gotta do something for this. Like, 5 TikTok dances you could do for the Ukrainian people. Get the fuck out of here. Get out of here. But rich white kids are like, oh my God, we're fighting. Oh my God, we're for the fucking Ukrainian. Oh my God. It's like, go fuck yourself. And listen, dude, if everything goes according to plan, my daughters are going to grow up well. I work very hard, and I want them to have everything they could, because that's kind of what we do. I want to be the example that you got to work hard. I'm raising 2 white girls in LA. I got a lot of work to do so they don't turn into belly fucking girl. You guys, I'm like, get the fuck out of here, dude. I love them to pieces. Their mom does not want them to be Cali girls, so we got a lot of work to do.
Sure. Sure. I'm surprised you. Have you thought about moving or no?
All the time. Am I still there?
Yeah.
Okay. All the time. All the time. I just got to
Yeah.
figure out the right place for me and the mom to agree on.
Sure. Any thoughts on, or you don't want to discuss maybe where you're thinking about going, or?
Yeah, I mean, like, I like Dallas. I like Tampa Bay. I don't want to live in Miami. I would like to live close to Miami because Miami is just the shit. I mean, if money wasn't an issue, San Diego would be great. But money and you got the same school system. Florida would be great. I love Miami, dude. I like to go
Yeah.
down the South Beach and just watch the wild things roam. It's like just living that Grand Theft Auto life. It's like, dude, nobody goes and watches comedy in Miami because they're too busy playing Grand Theft Auto for real. It's like people running over hookers, everyone's shooting. I could just everybody's hot in Miami, from the super rich to the peasants. All like, you just go to South Beach, you're like, oh, I saw you and Bang Bus. I've seen you and Bang Bus. I saw you and Bang Bus. It's the best, bro. It's the best. I love that. I love the weirder the better, dude. And so
Yeah.
those are places, but let's see what happens. I just love California weather, dude. It's like I'm spoiled. It's the best. So we'll see what happens. I'm very lucky that me and the baby's mama get along,
Hmm.
um,
Hmm.
and so we get along. And I've heard train wreck things like so we can figure out somewhere. She
Yeah.
wants to do like fucking Austin. I'm like, why? Well, that's just LA and Texas. Why are we going there?
Yeah.
Why are we
Sure.
going?
Sure. Yeah.
Right? I
Yeah.
mean, it's like Texas Longhorn football hasn't been good for years. You know why? Because all these recruits go to Austin and see how dog shit it is, and they're like, "Fuck that noise. Why am I gonna go want to play football?" I mean, the women are hot. There's a lot of cool people there, but your city is just crazy. Now in LA, dude, they're now starting to deal with the aftermath of this homeless situation. So now what they're doing is they're starting to deal with the mentally ill that are on the streets, and they're starting to get them off the streets, putting them in hospitals. So if a family member or a cop thinks you don't mentally have the ability to take care of yourself, they're throwing you into mental facility hospitals. And of course, the liberals are going to go crazy. But it's like, dude, I've seen these people. I'm like, I basically bribed all of the homeless in Hollywood. I basically hand out money so they like me. So I'm like the fucking the Winter King from Game of Thrones. Like, I just have all these zombies that are in my control. You know,
Or you're like, Varys,
I'm
the spider. He has all the spies in the city.
yeah, I'm like fucking rise and attack. But they need to do it, and it's like so. I mean, we'll see what happens. But yeah, I mean, I think Florida's great. Florida's great. They just got giant mosquitoes, and I don't do well. Like, dude, I'm raging war against fucking Bill Gates mosquitoes. I saw a fucking one like this, and I'm just like, damn. I'm like fucking getting in a fist fight with it. I'm fucking kneeing it. I'm like, fucking hell, Bill Gates, go back to fucking hell, bro.
When did you first hear about Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein? And yeah, when was the hook point for that? Because that's kind of our why we connected in a way.
So my whole thing began with Pizzagate, right? Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Obviously, the term Pizzagate was most likely started by, intelligence to be able to kind of take the label or the movement that was happening and just have enough doubt. It's called nonlinear warfare, right? So it's like the Pizzagate has both sides really jazzed up, and so the left will be like, oh, so they're having sex with kids in the basement. Guess what? There's no basement in that pizza. Well, he did have a fucking article which he talked about the basement where all the cans are. Okay, so but
Hmm.
I remember what because tinfoil hat started because Bernie Sanders got kneecapped by Hillary Clinton,
Oh
and
wow.
people, yeah, that's what started it. So
I didn't know that.
I had a naughty show that was going for a while, and then I stopped that, and then I was doing a podcast with a good friend of mine, and we just had a falling out for the moment, so I ended that show, and so I was kind of thinking of another show to do, and I came up with I'm like I was really talking hard about Hillary stealing the primary from from um Bernie
Bernie.
Sanders.
Yeah.
And I was watching people like Lee Camp and Jimmy Dore, who like are seen as progressives on the left, talking about these exit polls. My own eyes, I'd be like, Bernie Sanders is playing a stadium. Hillary Clinton can't put more than 100 people in a cafeteria. It doesn't make any sense. So I started talking about that, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna do a conspiracy podcast, and I was getting a lot of pushback from my friends in the comedy scene because this is the first time we see like the left kind of leave liberalism and fall into. We saw the left kind of leaving middle liberalism and going into fucking extremist progressivism, and they were
Mm.
like digging their heels in, defending Hillary Clinton, and I was just pushing back. People got physical with me. I'm like, dude, so I said, I'm gonna start this podcast. And I'm like, what should I name the podcast? And I was like, I really always love NWA, even though I do think they were a CIA psyop, but I always love that they took the word and kind of owned it.
Hmm.
So I'm like, what phrase can I come up with that will be a great name? And I came up with tinfoil hat. Like everybody, oh, what do you wear? Tinfoil hat? I'm like, that's gonna be the name. We're gonna own it. When you look up tinfoil hat, I'm gonna be like a top search thing, and that's what we are today. So I started doing it. I was lucky that one of my best friends was a guy named Eddie Bravo, who was like the face of conspiracies through the Joe Rogan experience. And him and I have just been, on this journey together. But then I started studying all the Hillary Clinton stuff, and when the Pizzagate stuff, I started doing my own investigation. And what really opened my eyes was that shooting that happened at Comet Ping Pong, where luckily they only shot the computer hard drive. How convenient, right? And I just started investigating James Alefantis. I started investigating who his lawyer was. His lawyer owned a pizza shop down the street called Best of Pizza. The Best of Pizza logo was what the FBI said was a child sex trafficking logo, and how that lawyer was also in charge of basically child trafficking for the U.S. government. And I'm like, why is this guy defending this dude? Like, doesn't make sense. And then the guy walks in, he starts shooting up the place. I start investigating that guy who his dad was. His dad worked for the Clintons in this like Habitat for Haiti orphans, which was funded by who? The Clinton Initiative. I'm like, oh, bing, bang, pow. It starts all clicking for me, right? And then I started looking at Laura Silsby. Then I started looking into all. I'm like, oh my God, it's all right there. And that's when I realized that everything I thought was an illusion. And I just started going down in these holes, and it just became like there's no evidence telling me I'm wrong. There's maybe like certain details might be off, but the big picture always right. And we've just been going deeper. So then you do this thing long enough that you start doing this conspiracy shit. You start going, who else is lying to me? Then you go deep enough, and then you
Who
start
else is lying to me?
you realize that, oh, they're lying about religion. If they're lying about religion, what else they lie? Oh, they're lying about the planet and what's going on and all this shit. You start going down hidden history, all that stuff. You start to get away from conspiracy. You start getting into spirituality. And when you start getting into spirituality, you realize all this is just loose jacking, and they're coming for your loosh. So I like to talk about it, but I have a podcast called Zero that I tell everybody this is the pot. If you're going to listen to Tinfoil Hat, you have to listen to Zero, because Zero teaches you how to deal with what you learn on Tinfoil Hat.
Okay, and that was the very first podcast you did on Tinfoil Hat? Or?
Tinfoil Hat is my conspiracy podcast. Zero is my spiritual podcast.
Oh, okay, gotcha. I'll be sure to add that link to the show notes as well.
Yeah, I can send you any links you want. But yeah, so then here we are, and just like I'm in this spiritual place. I had my daughters, and I just kind of, I started this podcast called Zero, and it was paywall. It started out as a pure paywall, and I felt bad doing a spiritual podcast where I charged, but it's just like I needed the money so badly because I'd lost my main income, and I just had 2 kids, and Rockfin was like, please do a show here. I'm like, okay, I'll do a show. And then I did the show, and it just took off. So now I'm starting to release the old episodes for free on Apple Podcasts. I'm trying to get it on Spotify. I don't know how I can do it. It keeps fucking with me, but that's what it's all. So it's like I'm into spiritualism. I'm into Hermetic principles. I'm into writing down your goals and your gratitude list and all that stuff.
Okay, yeah. Do you want to talk a bit about that? I'm not too familiar with Hermeticism or your spirituality in general.
Dude, you're gonna send me your address. I'm gonna send you this book. Hold on.
Okay. Let's take a look at comments here. Okay, what book we got here? Let me zoom in.
I didn't even know there was a comments. Oh shit.
Yeah.
This is called The Kabbalion, and it is a book about basically breaks down the Hermetic principles. And and once you start to read this shit, you start to realize what is really going on. And they've taken these, and basically the Hermetic principles are a spiritual version of a lot of the laws of physics. But what they did with the laws of physics is they kind of boxed us all in to a certain way of seeing the world that takes all of this, the magic that is where we live, and makes it so you can't believe in it, because if it can't be proven scientifically, which is total bullshit, then they tell you not to believe in it. And then it gets into my whole thoughts about intelligence versus smarts. People are intelligent. Intelligence is data. Okay. Smarts is the emotion of experience and understanding that stuff,
Okay. Yeah. That's an interesting take there. And yeah, I'll definitely send you my address, Sam. I'd love to read that. I think I've heard it referenced once before. Isn't the author, or no, is the author unknown or no? Or who is the author?
The author is, they talk about who did it for generations. Mr. Scott, A new, I think it. Well, he says Richard Smalley was the guy. They don't really know when the book came out, but I
Okay.
think,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Excellent. Excellent. And I want to be respectful of your time, Sam.
All
This
right,
has
dude.
been so fun, and I hope we can do it again and uh, meet up in person at some point. I will be in the West Coast this year eventually. I don't know if you're
Yeah,
going to be in the
dude.
area, but
When you're there, come hang out with me. I'd love to see you, brother, and we can
of
all go
course,
there. I'd love to see you. You're doing great. You do great work. I mean, I wish we could talk a little longer, but I gotta go take care of some shit. But
no
I
worries,
love
no
what you
worries.
do. You're such a hard worker. You're such a good person, and you're living in the light, and that's all I really do, dude. In my Twitter bio, I have first responder to my problems, and which is true. I deal with my problem and I try to live in the light, brother. And if you just live in the light, and this is coming from a knuckle dragging, porn addicted, fucking drug addict, and like talking about God, I have a visceral reaction to it. But if you live in the light and you connect with God, everything is possible, dude.
That's an excellent note to end on, Sam. Well, what or where can people find and support you? And do you have any upcoming shows? Because I know you were on tour for a little bit, right? Or you had some shows I saw recently.
I am going to you just go to samtripoli.com. You can find everything. Banner,
Okay.
you click banners, it takes you to my premium content. All my free, I have 7 free shows, 7 different podcasts, depending on what you want. I have, Tinfoil Hat, Broken Sins, my comedy podcast, Punch Drunks, my sport podcast, Cash Daddies is my financial podcast, Zero is my spiritual podcast. I'm a crazy person. I've just talked to myself all day. I have dates coming up. I'm going to be in Bisbee, Arizona on the 25th of March. I'm going to be in Tucson the 26th. Then I'm going to be in Cali, Hala. I'm going to be in Texas I'm going to be in Texas on the 8th. I'm in El Paso and the 9th at Corpus Christi. Those tickets are moving quick, so please grab it. You were telling this guy not to cuss. When did I not when did you say don't cuss? You
Oh,
say
did I say? I don't think I did.
yeah, I don't know what you were telling that guy not to cuss. Okay,
Oh,
I don't
I
know.
missed that. I totally
I
missed that
feel
one.
bad for Karens that you see Karen, you're like, whatever, Karen. You're like, Karen, you're a good person. We're all good people. But yeah, just go to samtripoli.com for anything Sam Tripoli. My specials are there. I have 3 specials. I'm about to put out record another one this summer. So go check it out.
Awesome. Awesome. Will do, Sam. Please go check those out, people. Thanks for tuning in to this podcast. It will be available anywhere podcasts can be listened to with the audio. For the video, rockfin.com/addy Likewise, I am on a Rockfin along with Sam. Stay frosty, folks, and we will see everyone next time.
I love you, brother.
Love you too, Sam.